Today's video is about how to actually improve knee flexion. Basic fundamental resting position for a human being is sitting on their heels, knees bent, upright. I can do different tasks down here. I should be able to get some knee flexion. Now, we understand people are coming in with a lot of different pathologies and what some may call limitations and dirty laundry, really, when you think about it. And so what we're trying to do is restore as much as we possibly can. If you're an athlete and you can't get into this end range, knee flexion position, heel to the butt kind of position, that's going to impair your movement in a lot of different sporting environments. We know our wrestlers are down in this position, any sort of grappler. We also know that we may end up in these positions as a result of falling down, collapsing. I'm trying to slide and get a ball, whatever it is, and I should be able to kind of get into this knee flexion position. A lot of times for our more mature athletes, we're dealing with a bit of arthritis, joint shape, geometry alterations, and things as a result of degenerative processes. And what we're trying to do is restore as much of that as we possibly can, especially if you had a joint replacement or something like that. You may look at this video and say, I'm never going to be able to do that. And while you may never be able to do this, even though it's not too extreme, you're already coming into it with the wrong mentality. And the mentality should be, I'm going to be able to get what I can get out of this thing. And if I can get my heel to touch my butt, I'm going to have a lot better quality of life as a result of having better knee flexion. So we're going to show you some very simple and easy mobilizations you can start with, even if you're starting from a low point where you don't have much knee flexibility, progressing to a point where you're a little more advanced and you're just looking for those last few degrees. Let's go into our first one right now. Okay, so we're on the wall. We call this the foot on the wall knee flexion stretch. We're on the wall here and we got something that can slide, right? We got a nice plexiglass thing on the wall for specific reason, which is we can do a lot of open chain work here, but we can also start to work on just knee flexion. And if I'm post-op, I can always take my other foot. ACL surgery, a lot of my ACL patients, they're coming down the wall as far into knee flexion as they can comfortably, take their other foot, bring it back up. And we can play around with different vectors here, which means getting further from the wall and allowing me to flex as low as I can, getting my butt closer to the wall, and allowing that knee to come down into a nice little knee flexion position, if you can see here. And I can come with a little external rotation to add varus or add valgus with the knee in. And if I have an ACL patient, I'm going to let them go with the knee out. Now, one of the nice things here is gravity is just assisting me, and I can just hang out in this position and just watch TV, watch some YouTube videos, watch some overhead athletics on YouTube if you're really cool. But I could just spend some time either passively or dynamically coming in and out of this position. And we can always regress this to just a seated heel slide variation with the foot on the floor sliding back and forth while I'm sitting in a chair. But I can also progress this too to some other loaded techniques. So take a peek at what I got going on here. I got my nice jump stretch band about 1.5 inches in width there. And I'm going to step through it. I'm going to show you on the left leg here. Now when I step through it, I'm going to walk out until I got some pretty significant tension on the band. Come down onto my butt, and you see this band, it's going to go underneath my body. The band is going to come up onto the top of the shin here, and this is actually one of my favorite self-mobilizations because I can lay onto that band and I just hang out in varying degrees of knee flexion depending on what I'm capable of. Anybody can really do this. So the nice thing about laying on this band is it actually forces the angle of pressure to be in line with the joint surface to get a nice little mobilization here. So we're mobilizing the tibia on the femur. So the femur is convex, the tibia is concave because of the meniscus, and so we can actually mobilize in various positions and get a little bit of mobilization force on our own. This is something I'm doing on the table with people all the time. We can start to manage these knee flexion issues on our own as well in this fashion to try to bring that knee into flexion by mobilizing that concave surface backwards. And this is something I could just hang out and watch TV for a few minutes a day just to try to restore some of that glide. Now, some people would tell you it's great to do in kind of this open pack position where I'm in kind of a little bit more knee extension. What I'll tell you is mobilize in the position of restriction where you're most limited and just let yourself hang out there as that knee flexes. So that's one way we can start to really work on that knee flexion component is laying on your back after you've done some of that angular motion down the wall. The next one we can start to do here is a little bit of oscillatory mobilization with your hands where you're just kind of flexing that knee. Now this is a nice, easy way to do it. And we can show you a little bit more advanced variation here in a second. So just working on knee flexion and kind of hitting some different angles there. And the same idea here is towards the butt. If you're really stiff, you're not going to be able to get here, use a strap, but I can start to work towards the butt in a little bit different angle with maybe a little bit more quad stretch and just kind of oscillating at that end range, poking into that tissue restriction and coming out. Once I've done that, and this one is sometimes seen as taboo, but it works really, really well, is take a rolled up dish towel on the floor, on a PT table, whatever you got, bring it just below the knee, and then sit into it. And so basically what you're doing here is you're driving that tibia back, and you're utilizing those roll and glide principles. Roll and glide would basically tell you when you're mobilizing a concave surface on a convex surface, roll is in the same direction as the glide. And so what we're doing here is we're kind of utilizing that principle to glide. And this works really well at that 90 degrees of flexion or so. So probably anywhere from here to about there, this works really good. As I get to this end range, it maybe doesn't work as well, but still it's pretty effective. And I can go to the left and hit the outside of the knee. I can go to the right, get a little more on the inside of the knee, and I'm driving it back. Now, once I've done that, sometimes what I like to do, especially if I'm getting pinching, particularly in the back of the knee, so it's like, hey, I'm feeling limited and it's right behind my knee here, take that same roll behind the knee and start to do the same thing. And this is going to start to open up the front of the knee. I find this works really well with people who have some posterior horn meniscal tears or tears in the back of the knee. You can do the same thing on the back, into that crease as high up as you possibly can, and then utilizing a force, pulling it in. Once again, a little bit taboo, but the idea here is you're decompressing the back of the knee where you're getting impingement and stretching the front of the knee here. And you could do static prolonged holds here and just hang out and watch TV or do something like that and just kind of let this knee flex. You should feel it in the front of the knee. Shouldn't be too painful, but it might not be comfortable. I say keep it at a 3 out of 10. If you're getting pinching, just back off a little bit. There's no problem. Even if you feel like you're not stretching it, if you're spending time in that flexion position, you're working on it. And then you can come back once you feel a little more advanced and do some stuff in this just kind of seated position. Even if your butt's a little bit off and you're working a little bit hard, you can cushion that a little bit back under your butt with a pillow or something like that, or a roll, just to kind of save the knees just a tad. And then start to work the long lever variation in your couch stretch. Usually put a pad under the knee. Right now I'm not gonna. Knee against the wall, shin against the wall. Come on back into this kind of extended posture with nice core tight. Stretch the front aspect because that's gonna stretch everything on the anterior side of the knee, and I can spend a little time stretching those tissues on the front aspect to loosen them up, particularly that rectus femoris, which is going to pull on the patella and keep me tight. For home purposes, let's get something underneath the knee here. Give these a try at home. Test them out. Try the different mobilizations. The ones that feel the best, that give you the most range, are kind of the most important. And keep going until you see a change, unless you're getting pain. And then keep working through it until you stop seeing a change. Usually if you can spend just maybe 2 to 4 minutes a day on 1 or 2 of these variations and then kind of mix it up throughout the week, you're going to see some pretty significant alterations in knee flexibility after. And the other component we haven't talked about in this video is getting you as strong as possible through the posterior aspect, which is your hamstring, getting you as strong as possible, particularly through the quadricep, to just improve overall roll, glide, and slide of the knee here, which is what you need in function. So that's kind of in another video in the future, but try these mobilizations, static stretches, dynamic stretches, and we'll see you guys in the next one.